Hello and welcome to another episode of Roby Rambles, a podcast where I, your host, Alana Roby, ramble about the deeper things in life while rambling out in nature. Today I am in the forest at 8,000 feet elevation to try and escape the heat that is at the elevations below. If you don't follow along over on Instagram, then you might not know that I'm currently working a summer job. It's a seasonal job where I do trail maintenance in the national forests, but that means that I'm living and working outside 24/7, and I don't get to pick the elevation that I work at, so I'm picking the elevation that I camp at today and get to film my videos at. So, we are at 8,000 feet elevation, it is a beautiful day outside, and today I want to talk about how your failures can ultimately be turned into your success. Now, I had the idea to do this episode because I was reading through the comments on last week's episode, which if you haven't listened to episode 4, where I talk about how to take the leap into the life that you desire, I will link that episode down below. But there was a comment that concluded by saying, "I've never seen how many times you've failed, but I've been witness to your tenacity and resilience. You are an inspiration." And while I post my YouTube videos to inspire other people to get outside in whatever way brings them joy, I don't often talk about my failures that led to me getting to where I am today. So in this episode, I'm going to be taking a deeper look at my personal failures and extrapolating across time, you could say, to see how they ended up turning into my success, in hopes of inspiring you to turn your failures into success as well. Now, in episode 4, I talked a lot about how I failed at being a solo international traveler. I had moved out of my cozy apartment, I had put everything that I owned into a suitcase and a backpack, and I left. Only to find out that switching countries every week or month and constantly sharing spaces with strangers in places like hostels and public places like buses and cafes was actually exhausting for my nervous system. And I could have very easily at that moment been like, oh, I failed, and went back to my apartment and went back to the life that I knew I could do and just accepted failure. But instead, I decided to make a few changes to the way that I was traveling and keep going. And luckily, I continued that pattern with my failures. Another failure that I don't talk about very much online is when I failed at being a manager of a yoga retreat center in 2022. So 1 year after I had initially moved out of my apartment, I had accepted this job to manage a yoga retreat center in Nicaragua for this woman that I had followed online for a while, and I really admired her, and I admired this yoga retreat business that she had built for herself, and I really wanted to learn from her and see how to do what she did myself. And so I accepted the job because I wanted to learn from her, not necessarily because I was qualified to be the manager of locals as a foreigner in Nicaragua. If you know me, I don't have a managerial personality, and I studied Spanish in university, so I'm conversational, I can get by, but nowhere near should have been in charge level of Spanish. But the owner of the retreat center assured me that I would learn as I went and that it would be just fine, so she hired me anyway. However, after only 1 month at the job, I began to realize that the owner of the yoga retreat center was simply just using other people for profit, both in the sense of using the local workers and underpaying them to keep them coming back to the job because they need the money, but they don't have enough money to get out of the situation that they're in really, really poor Nicaragua. And then she was also just kind of taking advantage of her following and knowing that she has people who admire her and look up to her and want to run her business for her. And I just kind of, the rose-colored glasses fell off, and I no longer admired her. And I felt like this person that I had been admiring for many years was kind of a fraud. And after a heated argument one day with the owner, I, without much thought, quit. And the very next day, hopped on a 16-hour bus from Nicaragua to Costa Rica, where obviously I had a lot of time to think on a 16-hour bus ride. And at the time, I was thinking, oh my gosh, I'm such a failure. I came here to do this 9-month manager job, and I could only complete 1 month of the job And like, I wasn't even qualified. Why did I sign up for this job? Like, I'm such a failure. I didn't learn anything. This was such a pointless waste of time. Like, I was definitely in that wallow of self-pity for a while. Don't get me wrong. It was this failure, however, that caused me to stop wanting to try to be the people that I saw online. Like, I started my YouTube channel in May of 2020 while I still lived in an apartment. And I was just copying all of the popular yoga teachers that I saw online, like Yoga with Adriene, Yoga with Cassandra. If you go all the way back on my channel, you will see the 28 Days of Love February challenge that I was trying to like imitate them and like copy them and be them. And then after that wasn't working, I was like, okay, I'm going to do this like solo international female backpacker life that I've seen other people on YouTube do. And so I created some videos like that. But after going to Nicaragua and meeting this person that I had seen online and had admired for years and realized that it was all kind of a fraud, like, I decided, you know what, I need to stop trying to be these people that I see online because that's not the full picture, you know? And I need to just start making videos for myself and making the videos that I want to create. So all of this was happening in January of 2023. And then by June of 2023, so just 6 months later, after deciding, you know what, I'm going to stop copying other people and just do me, my YouTube channel got monetized. And then a year later, in June of 2024, I received my silver play button for 100,000 subscribers on YouTube, and I hosted my own first yoga retreat with Grounded Retreats. And so if I hadn't had the courage to fail at that job, to fail at being a manager of a yoga retreat center, I may have just continued to follow in the footsteps of people that I admired and never actually truly built something for myself. Has life got you feeling overwhelmed? Step outside and into your body without leaving your home. At the Mind on Yoga, every class is filmed out in nature and designed to help you reconnect your body with your breath and your mind with stillness. From forest flows to grounding meditations and more, move with intention and let the stress melt away with the Mind on Yoga's virtual studio. Use code Roby Rambles to receive 20% off an annual subscription and get access to the entire on-demand class library for the same price as 4 in-studio classes. That's code Roby Rambles for 20% off an annual subscription, and that link will be down in the description. I guess another good example of a failure in my life that I could talk about here is that first yoga retreat that I hosted. Like, I only had 5 people sign up, which I was very grateful to have 5 people sign up, but I barely turned a profit after the costs that it took to rent the hip camp and to buy the food for everybody. I barely turned a profit. And then after that trip, I was contacted by companies like Trip and World Packers who wanted me to host group trips with them. So I launched a group trip to Colorado, I launched a group trip to Costa Rica, and then I waited. And I waited. And I only had 2 people sign up per trip. And I ended up having to cancel the trips because not enough people signed up in time. And so I could have taken all 3 of those first group trip experiences, first retreat experiences, and said, you know what, I'm a failure. I can't host group trips. I can't host yoga retreats. You know what, I just can't do it. And I could have just given up. Like, that would have been the easier thing to do. But instead, I looked at what I had learned, both through my experience hosting or attempting to host trips, and also my experience working at that yoga retreat center in Nicaragua, and I said, okay, what can I change about my business model in order to keep this project moving forward? And then I did just that. I mean, I determined that the group trips that I was trying to host with the companies like Trip and World Packers were just too expensive for my audience that I've built based off of like really frugal living in a car. And so in addition to recognizing that I needed to offer a cheaper option, I also recognized my, I don't want to say toxic trait, because sometimes being independent like is very helpful and I'm very glad that I'm an independent person. But sometimes I'm so independent that I will just get super stuck on doing things by myself. And I decided that for this next retreat, I needed to not do that. I needed to reach out to other people. I needed to collaborate. I needed to bring other people into this project, this goal of mine, in order to make it something that could be truly special. And so now, for my next retreat in October of 2025, I'm co-hosting with 3 really amazing women, and they are helping me host the yoga classes. They're doing sound healing meditations. I have a massage therapist coming. So it's really turned into this like cool group project, and because of that, now we're 2/3 of the way sold out already, and the retreat is still over 3 months away from today, June 20th. Like, if you had told 1 year ago Alana that her next retreat she would have 22 signups, she would not believe you. She would be like, but I just had 5 at my last retreat. Like, nobody wants to come. Like, I'm a failure. Like, I'm not making this episode to say that I never wallowed in self-pity. Like, there was always a period of that, but then if you take time to step back every once in a while and reflect, you can start to see how maybe those times of failure have ultimately led to your success. Also, I feel like the more that I stop and reflect and ask myself, how have my past failures turned into my current successes, the easier it is for me to manage my anxiety when I fail. I'm sure somebody else can relate to this, in the sense that when I fail, I start to get in my head thinking that, oh, the people around me think I'm such a failure, like, this is going to end my career, this is going to make me a failure forever, and I start to spiral because of my anxiety. But the more that I practice reflecting back on my life, the easier it is for me to say to myself, okay, I failed. I wonder how this will help me in the future. That is something that I'm starting to implement currently, and it's really been helping. So I wanted to also insert that into this episode in case it might help you as well. This year, Grounded Retreats is teaming up with Cedar Bloom Farm, the #1 hip camp in Oregon. Join us October 2nd through the 5th, 2025, where we will be camping, practicing yoga, going for meditative walks, having group workshops, and so much more. My co-hosts are Emily from Do Yoga Outside, who will help me facilitate the yoga classes, and Emily Sedona on Instagram, who will bring her sound healing instruments to play at the end of yoga class. We will also have a massage therapist there to help you truly relax. So if this sounds like something you'd enjoy, I'll leave the sign-up link down in the description, and you can use code Roby Rambles for 5% off your booking. I hope to see you there. Alrighty, I've been rambling for 27 minutes without editing so far, so we're going to do one final example of how maybe my failures have ultimately led to my success in my life, and that is the example of living in my car. I think a lot of people can look at my life from the outside and see that I'm living in a very small car and working very not normal jobs and think, oh, she's a failure. However, I personally view living in my car as the start to my success. Like, that might sound weird, but I have no bills, really. I have no commitments. I have no pressure. I have very little responsibilities. Like, living in my car gives me the freedom to then explore, the freedom to go where I want to go and do what I want to do. And I feel like it also has given me the freedom to pursue the goals that I want to pursue in order to find my version of success. Because reminder, like, everybody's version of success is going to be different as well. And so I say all of this to say that at the end of the day, failure is something that is in the mind. Whether it's in your mind or whether it is in somebody else's mind being projected onto you, like that last example of other people perceiving me as a failure because I live in my car. But I personally think that you haven't truly failed until you convince yourself that you have failed and you give up. Like, until then, it's not a failure because you can still learn from it and continue moving forward and ultimately find success through it. Because it's not that successful people have never failed, okay? It's that successful people have the perseverance to keep going in the face of failure in order to find their success. So, what is my takeaway for you today? The next time you catch yourself wallowing in self-pity and making yourself feel like a failure, ask yourself, what can I change about this situation that can help me change my perspective in order to continue moving forward? And then do just that. Okay, that's all the rambling I have for you today. Thank you so much for listening or watching this new creative project of mine. If you made it all the way to the end of this video, show me with your thumbs by liking this video and leave a comment down below. What is one example in your life where you have turned a failure into a success? If you enjoyed this episode, please consider sharing it with anyone you may know who might resonate with it, and even share it over on your Instagram story and tag us at Roby Rambles and at Alana Roby. I would love to connect with you over there, and I hope to see you guys again in the next episode. Bye!